Yo, what's good? It's Miss Stora. Today, I want to talk about game reviews, y'all, and how lately they have been worrying me a bit, but still to the point where I just can't stop thinking about it. Now, I'm talking about how I feel as if I don't know if I can trust them lately. Specifically, I'm talking about pre-release reviews, where a game developer or publisher sends, a reviewer, either independent, like, a content creator, or someone attached to a company like IGN, a review code for free a good while before their game is released to the public. So that way, by the time, the release date hits, or maybe a day or a few prior, that reviews go out to the public. So that way gamers have an idea of what this new game is like and how good it is. So that way they know if they should spend their time and their money on it. Normally on the surface, this seems like a good system, harmless, you know what I'm saying? Devs and publishers can drum up exposure and hype for their game prior to release, especially if their game ends up being good, with reviews that just sing its praises. And that tells the public, hey, it's a game worth buying. And reviewers get early and free access to games they likely were looking forward to playing anyways. By the time these release dates arrive, people have typically been waiting for a good long while for, a given game to come out. So with the exclusiveness of it all, a review detailing how bad or good the game ended up being very close to or on the release date is bound to just be swarmed with attention, with people even watching multiple reviews. I know I've done it myself. Benefits for both parties involved, right? With that said though, I do have problems with this system, specifically surrounding that exclusivity I was just talking about, in that not just anyone gets early access codes to these games. It's typically a small amount of content creators / reviewers, and again, gaming media companies, right? What I'm getting at is I worry lately just how much reviewers are pulling their punches when it comes to being honest on how they feel about these games that they're critiquing. The way I see it, there is 100% an incentive, a very real one, for reviewers to keep these publishers and developers happy. Like I said, these reviews get lots of attention. There's a lot of pride associated with feeling like you've been granted this exclusivity and early looks at these games. And logic would simply dictate that you want to keep the people who entitle you to these benefits happy. Now, I want to be 100% clear, right? I'm not calling out every or any, pre-release reviewer in specific, right? Saying that they've all been paid off or whatever. That's not my intention, and this is more of a general thing that I've noticed. Hey y'all, I got a quick editor's note. I just wanted to squeeze in how the purpose of this video isn't just to bring awareness to these concerns that I have. It's also to pose a question and bring up a dialogue on what can content creators and reviewers do to still enjoy privileges such as pre-release review copies and collaborations or partnerships, including in-person events with all these game devs and publishers, while at the same time still having the trust of you, their audiences, in their opinions. I posed that question at the end of the video, but I just wanted to make sure it was also up here towards the beginning as well. If given the same opportunities as the reviewers I'm talking about in this video, I'd absolutely take them. And my concern is that I don't want my audience to have some of the same worries that I'm experiencing right now should I begin making pre-release content or reviews for games. And even with these worries there, I want to be clear that I do still watch plenty of pre-release reviews from creators that I enjoy their content. Okay, back to the video. It's just that far too often I can imagine situations where, like, not even intentionally, a reviewer might just so happen to choose gentler words than they might have typically used otherwise when talking about a negative aspect to something they're reviewing. And not only can I imagine it, I feel like I can also actually see it happening. Most recently, I'll use as an example with Dragon's Dogma 2, which is a game I suspected would end up being my personal game of the year. So I'm definitely of the group of gamers that wanted to see it succeed. So when those pre-release reviews came out and they were for the most part overwhelmingly positive, I was insanely excited. I couldn't wait for the game to finish downloading so I could give it a try myself. And when I finally got Dragon's Dogma 2 booted up and had played it a good chunk of time, I felt as if I was playing something different than the game those pre-release reviewers were so excited about when giving their positive opinions on it. For some examples, they were singing the game's praises of its open world and combat, but the enemies you fought in said open world were insanely repetitive, didn't offer much of a challenge, and most of the encounters you had with them were over really before they even got started. So that excellent combat lasted a disappointingly short time in way too many cases. Also, the performance issues were described as just a bump in the road by many reviewers, something small that didn't detract too much from the game's overall enjoyment. But to me, they were instead a huge roadblock, something that very often detracted from my enjoyment of the game and was constantly immersion breaking. It wasn't just my PC either, as plenty of gamers with dang near supercomputers, in terms of specs for their PCs, reported the same thing. I have a few more scenarios in which this, kind of divide in opinion came up as I was playing the game. And as I said, I watched multiple reviews, but I don't want to go on and on about those scenarios, as this video isn't a Dragon's Dogma 2 review and I don't want it to feel like one. Now, I'm not saying that Dragon's Dogma 2 was a bad game. I loved the first one, but ultimately it ended up being just good, in my opinion. Probably like a 7.5 out of 10 as of right now, with the performance issues holding it back from being higher. And I'm not alone. After the game had been out for some time, post-release reviews started to pop up. More in-depth, long format, and intimate reviews from content creators that didn't get pre-release review copies of the game from Capcom. And over after watching multiple of those reviews, I felt like my experience with the game was vindicated. I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy. It's these post-release reviews that I felt were more in line opinion-wise with what the average gamer might also experience while playing the game. And I remember after watching the last of those reviews having an unsettling feeling. Like, why was there such a big gap in pre-release and post-release reviewer opinions? Like, even when looking at Metacritic now, the game sits at an 86 for critics, again, those that got review copies for the game, and a drastically different 6.3 for the user score. Now, some people gave it 0 simply for the microtransactions, which, really don't affect the game all that much. But if you skim through the user score reviews, you'll see a lot of people leaving valid complaints about the game that, again, I didn't see addressed much or at all in pre-release reviews. To keep this video as short as I can get it, I'll stick to just Dragon's Dogma 2 as an example, but just know that this scenario comes to mind for many other recent game releases as well for me personally. And it's not only that, but there's certain behaviors or things, for lack of a better term, that I see happening separate from their reviews that content creators engage in or do that legit worries me. And I like some of these people too. These are creators that I enjoy their content a lot and I think are genuinely good people, but still the worries are there nonetheless. Like, I've seen content creators as part of panels for pre-shows of gaming showcases, such as, Capcom Spotlight events, which I imagine are paid gigs most likely, as they should be, or at the very least, just great exposure opportunities in the industry. Over and over, we see content creators being invited to exclusive events to get early looks and hands-on with games such as, the recent Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree event. And even at conventions and other in-person events, getting certain expenses paid for and getting things like exclusive VIP access. And what it is that worries me about, taking on such opportunities is they're obviously incredibly fun. Sometimes you're compensated for them either financially or in goods, which has got to be awesome, right? Or even just being a fan of these games and being compensated for the experience to get early looks and hands-on for these titles is more than enough just to be able to say that you experienced it. And with all of that, when those same game devs and publishers that provide those opportunities to creators then ask them, hey, to review one of their games, can they be truly impartial, having opinions that are completely their own? Even in the back of your head, there has to be some incentive to keep them happy, so that those kinds of opportunities and this kind of exclusive access continues, right? And look, I'm not saying it's always intentional, but it could be subtle, unconscious things, such as unknowingly using kinder language when talking about a game's flaw that ultimately does end up downplaying an issue the game has. Now, I've had thoughts on this for quite some time, ever since a YouTuber named Ranton made a video on this subject like 4 years ago, but it's just more recently that I felt like it's becoming even more obvious of a reality, with there being more times where pre-release reviewers and those that, review and play games post-release end up having different scores / thoughts on some of these games. Now, this puts me in a weird spot, as I don't necessarily know how to fix these concerns. I don't know what a better system looks like for getting reviews out there prior to release so that gamers can make informed purchases. You know, people have their favorite content creators and they want their opinions on games specifically. At the end of the day, you know, game devs and publishers should have full say in who gets early access to their works, and gigs or trips to events, showcases, or what have you that they offer up to content creators do serve to add hype to upcoming game releases that sometimes honestly deserve it. And I myself love reviewing games. All of my reviews are post-release, of course, save for like a few impression videos of closed or open betas of certain games, but still it's something I genuinely enjoy doing. And if given the chance, I mean, yeah, I'd love to review games prior to release, as I feel like I have an opinion that people can trust. But I'm sure that these other pre-release reviewers feel the same about their opinions. Despite the difference in opinion I feel like I've seen from them and post-release reviewers lately for certain games. I'd honestly be a liar if I said I wouldn't want to go to some of these events, in-person previews, showcases, and more. As fans of these games, I think all of us would jump at the opportunity, especially more so if some or all of the expenses were paid or some kind of compensation like gear or other goods were involved. So my question is, for myself as a content creator who is growing, you know, slowly but surely, and for the other creators out there that are already getting review copies and early exclusive access to games, what can they do to keep your trust? What are some actions they could take with you, their audiences, that would help you feel more confident in their opinions being truly their own, as unbiased as possible and impartial, not influenced by companies they partner with or potential fear of losing their opportunities? Or do you just go off of, you know, like personality and the kind of vibes that a creator gives off? Let me know what you want to see personally from these creators and reviewers. And that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate y'all for listening to this discussion and giving me your thoughts on all of this as well, because if a day should come where I'm getting review copies or going to events, I want the people that watch my videos to feel like they can trust my feedback and opinions. As always, I'm Minstora, and I'll catch you on the next one. Be easy. Peace.